Welcome to the Car Guys, and here I am at Beaulieu for Simply Porsche, one of the biggest events that Beaulieu has here in the summer. You get hundreds, and I'm talking many hundreds of Porsche, all generations, all years, all types, all lined up. All the owners get together, have a good old chin wag, and this year I'm here. As you can see, I've brought the 993 C4S in forest green metallic, and sadly this week Jason is not able to make it because he's on a beer brewing course. I'll leave you to decide which would have been the better day out, but that means I'm on my own. I'm going to walk around all these cars. I'm going to pick my favourites, exactly the ones that I like the most, maybe the ones that I want to buy in the future, and generally immerse myself in Porsche, because of course you know that for me it's all about the older Porsche. It's not about the new Porsches anymore, but we'll talk more about that later on. So why on earth am I here? Well, obviously I've got a bit of a Porsche problem. I've got three of them. I'm always looking at others. One of my first real sports cars was a 993 911. I love the older stuff. I love the newer stuff as well. But to be honest, it's just one of those things. It's one of those brands that when you get involved in and you meet lots of the owners, you see the passion involved, you can't help but want more of it. So over the years I've had a 993, I've had 996 GT3s, I've also had a 997 Turbo S, I've got the 718 Spider, which you'll have seen a lot of, I've got my 991.2 GT3 Touring, which is a keeper, never ever sell that car, very special, and obviously at the moment I've got the 993. So I think it's safe to say that I definitely have been bitten by the Porsche bug, but I have to say it is not all smooth sailing dealing with Porsche at the moment and buying new cars. As you will know, having seen the channel, if you're a regular viewer, you will know it has not been the most pleasurable experience, and many of the people here today have regaled me with tales of woe from official Porsche dealers in terms of getting allocations for car, how they've been dealt with, just in terms of the general feeling of worth. There are a lot of people around here who are moving away from Porsche or moving away from OPCs and buying new Porsches because they just don't want that experience. They want to feel valued, they want to feel like a proper customer, and they obviously also want to get the cars that they're really interested in, and that is becoming increasingly difficult. Even though Porsche is making more and more special editions and exciting cars, the number of people that are getting them is smaller. It tends to be very similar people all the time, and rather suspiciously those cars then end up back at the official dealer 6 months later with a huge premium. That's probably one of the reasons why I'm shying away more from the newer stuff and delving back to the older stuff. And one of the things that's particularly exciting about a day like Simply Porsche is the variety of cars that you get here. So what I'm going to do now is go and have a look. I'm going to take you along for the ride. We're going to look at all the cars that interest me, have a little discussion about them. To be honest, who knows what's going to happen? And the first car I'm going to talk about today is this 930. This is, of course, the classic 80s turbo. It is in Guards Red. It belongs to a friend of mine and a friend of the Car Guys, and it is no disservice to say it is absolutely immaculate. Now this car has the very unusual coloured seats, so you've got red internal coloured seats with black outers, but you just cannot beat these cars. I of course had one of these cars. I had one in linen, but this Guards Red example, absolutely phenomenal. These cars now have really come into their own. They are absolute quintessential 911s, real collector's items, and I have to say this is probably one of the best I have ever seen. And right next to it is possibly the car of the show for me, because this is a 911T, but it is in quite the most spectacular blue. I think it might be Aussie blue or Gulf blue, but it really is an absolute peach. I love these 60s cars, and as you know, the 911T I think was the lowest powered version of the ones at the time, but just look at that purity of the shape. And in this blue with the chrome, yeah, I got quite excited actually because it says there's a for sale sign on it, but it's actually for a different car. So I thought it was going to be this one, but wow, I'm really enjoying this one. As you can see inside, we've got the black leather inside and the classic dials. Everything looks original. Yeah, big fan of this one. And from the incredible beauty and simplicity of this beautiful classic, we've got something a little bit more modern. As you can see, sporting that optional Martini decal pack. This, of course, is a 991 GT3, an absolute weapon. I, of course, have one in touring guise, but this one is made out to look more like a racer, and you can't help but be impressed and seduced by the brutality and speed and efficiency of these monsters. But what do you think? Yes, your eyes do not deceive you, folks. This is a Guards Red 996 Turbo with tan/caramel interior. This is a real statement car, and actually values of these 996 Turbos are increasing at the moment. People are finding them extremely exciting. This is an automatic, but we'll forgive it for that, but it certainly does look great here today. And I'm reminded just how small the 996 platform actually is. We all thought it was enormous and fat and bloaty at the time compared to the 993 and the 964, but actually now they're aging quite beautifully. And talking about aging quite beautifully, what about this? This is a left-hand drive 911 Targa. You can tell here, Targa, and with a stainless steel rollover hoop. This is a 1973 or 74 car by the look of it, and it of course has blue tartan seats. There's just something about the Targa. There's something about its upright profile. This is a particularly beautiful example. It's got a Porsche Club of America badge on it, and can you imagine anything finer cruising around California in one of these? Because I certainly can't. Now obviously I would not normally like something that's been a bit customized, but in this case I'm going to make an exception. I actually really like this 944. It's a rich metallic blue. I do not think those are stock wheels, but they actually look amazing. Split rims with the same body coloured innards. Some would say it's a bit Fast and the Furious. Some people would say maybe it's not for me, but actually I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I'm digging it. So props to you, the_on_set_tech. This, on the other hand, I simply do not understand distressed wraps like this. I just think it looks horrendous. Sorry. I cannot ignore this car here on the Ashgood Porsche stand. This, my friends, is a 991.1 GT3, but it is in Voodoo Blue, a very special paint to sample colour, and one that absolutely pops in this sunlight. I almost bought a 991.1 GT3 just like this, so actually I'm a little bit seduced by this. I think I'd obviously always go for the 0.2 if I could, but I have to say, for the price and looking at this, it just looks incredible. And how about this for a blink it or you'll miss it GT4 RS? Literally no one here has even noticed that this car is here. Now maybe that's because it's in white and people just don't recognize it or expect it to be in white. They expect it to be in crayon like seemingly every other one. Maybe it's because it's got yellow stripes around the wheels, which I personally find distasteful. But actually, is it because the GT4 RS has already had its day and people have moved on and now they're looking at other cars? Maybe it's that. After all, Porsche has just announced the Spider RS, so perhaps the GT4 RS is already fading from view. Yeah, that's right, folks. Someone's brought along this ropey old green 993. Don't know who it belongs to, but phew. And it would be remiss of me not to talk about this 991.2 GT2 RS. Now this is a very special car, partly because I very much want to own it, but also not only is it in GT silver, but you've also got that tan leather on the carbon buckets. A very expensive £20,000 option, but it makes this car pretty much unique. This, I think, is one of the most desirable GT2 RSs out there. If you're listening, yes, I would very happily take this off your hands, my friend. Now, I don't really know what this is, and frankly, I'm not sure I do want to know. All I do know is it's based, I think, on a 993. I can tell that it's fast, I can tell that it's leery, and I can tell that I do not want one. And here, under the shade of a tree, we have one of the absolute gems of Porsche collectors. It is, of course, the 2.7 RS. This one in the white with green colour scheme. But when you come across these cars, you just can't help but go a bit silent, go a little bit dewy-eyed, the fact that it's an RS, the fact that it's lightweight, the Fuchs wheels, the ducktail. These are special, special cars. There was a time when I almost bought one of these, but this is just absolutely fabulous. Whenever you see them, you can't help but go a little bit giddy. Whoa. Have you had enough of 911s yet? No? Okay, well, let me introduce you to the 50th anniversary. This is a very smart looking car. It's got these really distinctive homage wheels, those sort of classic looking wheels, but also it has inside the silvery houndstooth pattern on the seats, which you got obviously in the 911R, and I've now got in my GT3 Touring. I think these are very smart buys and very handsome cars, without a shadow of a doubt. So maybe I'll just pop in a cheeky offer. What do you think? Now I know what you're thinking. This is a 964 RS in maritime blue. Damian must be getting a bit excited right now, and you would be right. However, it is not a 964 RS. It is in fact a 964 which has been stripped out and made to look exactly like a 964 RS. But it's still maritime blue, my favourite colour for the 964 RS. And actually, they've done a pretty good job here because it does look remarkably similar, if not almost identical. It's also got a carbon roof, which is quite interesting, but this is a stripped out track car. That's what it's for, but it does remind me that really I should get on and get a 964 RS in maritime blue for the garage. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that that is a Riviera Blue 968 Club Sport, a car that I love the look of, but I didn't actually love driving that much. So you're always guaranteed to see some fine specimens of Porsche if you head to the Porsche Club GB section. This is the field that I now find myself in, and of course I'm not going to be disappointed because right here I have what looks like a Tangerine 911S, a particularly well-travelled and fantastic classic Porsche, but also here something that tugs on my heartstrings quite a bit, because this is very much the same spec as my first 911, a 993 Carrera, which is just the two-wheel drive, the basic one, but many say the nicest, in midnight blue with marble interior. Just like mine, it's a manual car, and this is just the sweetest thing. I think, as I've said before on my channel, it's the first car I found where you could go from overtaking one or two cars to overtaking 4 or 5. This lineup perhaps personifies what's so special about Porsche and 911s, perhaps more than any other. You have modern, classic right next to each other, but yet you can see the lineage, you can see the heritage, you can see all the styling cues that have remained with the 911 ever since it was created in 1963. Look at that. Two 993s, a 911S, and a GT3, a modern GT3 991. And then as I look back over here, we have a fabulous 993 Turbo. This is perhaps a car that I should own, but perhaps it's the Turbo S that I lust after the most, although they really are soaring in values. But I do love the shape of the 993 Turbo, and you can see how my C4S emulates the look of this with its Tech Art wing. But then as we look over here, we've got, there you go, that's Mike's Oak Green 718 Spider. You'll recognise that car from Craig's Spider Club meets. It is an absolutely stunning car, and of course Mike is out and about. And here we've got another two 993s. This is a Carrera S, which has got an optional big wing package on it. It looks like it's in maybe iris blue metallic. And then we have this, quite a rare sight. This is, of course, the 993 Targa. So as you can see from here, rather than the removable panels that you got in the older car, and obviously the huge folding panels in the modern Targa, the 993 uniquely had this enormous glass piece that would slid back under the rear screen. So you can see there, quite an unusual solution. You don't see many of them on the road. Now, you know me, I am a big fan of the 356 Speedster. Even in white with a red interior, they just make me go a little bit funny. I've come close to buying one of these several times, and obviously Spike Ferriston from Spike's Car Radio goes on and on about them, as does, of course, Jerry Seinfeld. So I have no doubt at some point in the future I will own one of these cars, and I definitely should have bought the aquamarine one from DK Engineering. Such a simple shape, the interior very elegant, not overpowered, delicate handling. You can't really get into trouble with them, but you get all the experience, all the open air experience, the engineering, the fine detail, the tactility of the controls. They're just wonderful, wonderful things. One of these needs to be in my garage at some point. Do I need to be a bit older for that? Do you know what? I don't think so. Yes, I have found the 928 Field. I'm a big sucker for 928s, obviously, because I am a child who grew up with Risky Business, starring Tom Cruise and Rebecca De Mornay, and those who remember that film remember that this was the star of it and ended up in Lake Michigan. So you cannot fail to love this shape. It was, of course, reputedly going to be the replacement for the 911. That quite didn't work out for Porsche. I just love its futuristic shape. Just look at them. We've got a whole field of them here, all different colours: light blue, iris blue, gold, black, and Wimbledon green. And if you remember watching the Grand Tour with Jeremy Clarkson, where he took one of these to South America and he gave that very emotional talk about his father's death and a 928 and the part it played, always brings a tear to my eye and makes the 928 even more special. So we know Clarkson's a big fan, and I definitely am as well. Away from the crowds, and we have this 944 Turbo. Now, many people will say that the Turbo is the one to have, and I have to say, I agree with them. It would either be a Turbo or a Turbo S for me. The last time I drove a 944, it was a convertible, and it was 1993. I did quite enjoy it. It's the end of the day. I've walked around this whole place. I'm a bit cream crackered, but I thought I'd just end by telling you which is my car of the show. And it's tempting to say, obviously, this Guards Red 930. It's also tempting to say it would be this Martini Modern GT3, but I would be lying, because actually my car of the show is this 911T, the very first one I started with, and I haven't found anything better except perhaps that white Speedster. That came pretty close, but I'm afraid this is going to be my car of the show. So here we are, back where we started, back at my car. And it's been a good day, to be honest. It's very hot. There's lots of Porsche owners here willing to chat, saying hello. CarGuys fans, obviously, why wouldn't they be? And it does make you reflect really on what it's like to be part of this community. If you own a Porsche, you're part of what drives all of these people. For me, it's a shame that I probably won't ever buy a new Porsche again, but I'm very excited about the old stuff. There's certainly some cars here which have piqued my interest. There's not been a GT3 RS 996, which is a shame. I quite fancied seeing one of those. There were no 4 litres here, which again I quite fancied seeing one of those. Possibly one of those could come to the garage, but there's certainly been a large number of cars here that have been extremely interesting to see, and it's been great to catch up with a lot of you. Hopefully Jason can make the next event, because obviously then it'll be a lot more entertaining for you guys. Thank you for watching this episode on Simply Porsche at Beaulieu and my thoughts on Porsche and all of these incredible models. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you found it entertaining. If you like what we're doing on the Car Guys, please subscribe, leave comments and likes. There'll be another episode next week.